This looks like the museum building, but geez, it doesn't look like much. It's like totally run down. This is what scares me about the international organizations. They go ahead and they pump their money in, and they create something very pretty and very nice, and then it just degrades into nothing. So what was the point? There aren't even decent directions to find this. I just kind of dead reckoned. I'm thinking this may be the ruins of an Aman, in other words, a bathhouse. Those smokestacks suggest to me, heating water. These domes, maybe the changing rooms. There were two different sections usually for men and women. Here was another dome, excuse me. So it looks like this front wall was restored and other portions were restored, but there's no apparent access. Here what looks like a relatively new statue, very pretty, very modern, in the midst of nothing. It's degrading without use. It appears there's somebody for security, but I wonder what his job is. The reason this is so dilapidated is because it's going to be moved to the new museum, which is at the center we were at this morning, in the building to the far left across the river near the stone bridge. It's being built for it. That way it'll be closer to the center of tourism. As I indicated earlier, I only found this place by dead reckoning. These again are for spinning wool, I think. Those may be hooks for grabbing onto a bale of wool, for all I know. Here are what we recognize from America and elsewhere. Devices for spinning wool and a loom for making the rugs. This also for spinning wool. The lady had one in Braccino. You've seen a number of these. They make magnificent antiques, if you can get them. I don't know how you would. This may be for combing out the wool or the cotton, I don't know. This looks like something for stirring, but it may be an instrument. Ah, yes, perhaps an instrument or some kind of saw. But for what? I don't know. Maybe butter, maybe for cheese, cutting cheese. It's interesting to look at these items and realize, like antiques, as these are, they've all been used, so they have histories. Costumes. This is interesting. A rudiment kitchen. For flour or grains of some sort. Huh. It is fascinating to see how people lived, and at the zenith of technology in their time, to their knowledge, perhaps. Imagine the man who cut this piece of wood to make this stool, and how his family pleasured in it when they had it. An art form, a trade, a skill, all its own. And rather than cheese, it was probably for cutting something like the grains. As you can see, there's the blade. You can see how well worn it is on this side, suggesting that the heavier portion hung off to the left when it was cut. It just said that oftentimes the poor women in these small villages carried the wealth of 100 women who considered themselves wealthy in Vienna, because these women wealth in the form of silver and gold, ornamentation on their costumes. Imagine if all of this is silver. Just look at it from its intrinsic value rather than its artistic and historical and ethnological value. I don't remember America's people as having a kind of rigid I'm going through these quickly because unless you're about to study them, the differences are far too subtle to be taken in quickly, although it's obvious that this is different than what we've been looking at. But these subtleties, to me, would have been profound to these folks as they encountered each other, let's say in larger cities on market days. They would instantly know to which group they belonged and the others belonged. And you have to wonder how much of what I'm looking at now was everyday wear versus Sunday best. I'm guessing much of it was the latter, but there may be a mix, such as that dress there on the right. And some of these clothes well designed for perhaps the harsh winters, if these in fact were mountain people. How bundled up the woman looks. How lithe and agile looks the man. In our culture, that surprises us. These outfits, particularly for warriors, which in fact they did wear. Someone running around in skirts just doesn't conjure up danger to us, which is probably a danger. I also doubt I'll be able to video this when they move into the new museum. The flowers were these Macedonian or Greek coins. That looks like a silver dollar. It is. And that also, 1901. Liberty, these are all American coins. How interesting is that? And more coins, but not American. The metal worker's craft is bellows, or the tinsmith, perhaps. Look at the beautiful artwork, engraving, even if it's not that distinguishable. Although with the camera we should be able to get pretty close, yes. The intricacy, the beauty, the lines of this vessel. What would such a thing have been worth at its time? Who would have bought such a vessel? Something from a church. Magnificent things. Look at the detail. When you think about the effort that went in, you can imagine how such a piece of jewelry embodied wealth for those who owned it. in the same way that, in some degree, expensive jewelry is worth more than the sum of its parts. Imagine how your piety increased if you owned such a device to hold your psalm book or your Bible. Just imagine the wealth this belt implies. Each of those links may have some intrinsic value as well as its artistic value. And notice that one piece in the right side would have held a stone, as does this one at the bottom, which has a ruby, or many in the pocket watch. I think this was a little top hat for women. But mind-boggling. Look at it. Look at that detail. Incredible. How much time would it take to make something like this? The links would be the easy part. They're dripping of corn. An interesting affectation. And quite understandable. And you can well imagine that a piece like that was passed down generation after generation. This pretty beaded bauble seems so piquant. What would be the symbology of that cord on the right, or the use of that fabric that's vertically striped? And why is it folded to the left? Just for greater mobility? Look at these lovely bracelets. I wonder if this is where the Western cowboy got his idea. Heavy coats and undergarments. Look at the intricate beadwork. It all looks like it's a felt material, a heavy, heavy wool. Look at that fancy beadwork. Look at the curiosity as she looks at the photographer who's looking at her with curiosity. You can well imagine a herder wearing this outfit for warmth. This regal in its simplicity, angelic almost.